Hey friends, welcome back to another tutorial with 27 Plumbing. Today we will be replacing a thermal expansion tank on a water heater. Now I'm going to go ahead and let you know right now, this is not going to be quite as DIY friendly as some of the other videos that I've shown in the past. You will be working with the water lines in your home, you will be needing to shut water off to the house, carefully restore water, and make sure that you have no leaks. When you get into these type of jobs, there is always a potential that things could escalate a little bit. So, first recommendation, if this is not something you feel like you are comfortable doing, don't do it. There's no shame hiring a professional to take care of this for you. However, if this is something you think you maybe will be able to take on, I would caution you to watch the entire video first. There are a few aspects that I'll discuss where we do have a little bit of risk involved, and there's sometimes some other solutions you can do. I want you to know what we're doing first beforehand, get the full scope of it so that you don't follow along with me and only to then hear me discuss a potential risk that you could have avoided altogether. Hopefully that makes sense. Basically, watch the video in its entirety first and then follow along with it if you would like to do so. All that said, this is not a very challenging job to do. If you've got a little bit of muscle strength, because sometimes they do take some strength to get the old ones out. If Hercules has been the one to tighten that thing down, you might need a pipe wrench or two. Usually you don't. It's really not that bad. You get a little bit of advice, a little bit of step-by-step as I'm going to show you. This is something I think a lot more people can take care of than they may think they can. Side note, I'm in my basement. I have cats. They've got a fancy cat box that does its own self-cleaning and is the bane of my existence sometimes. The thing does not always operate. It just started up, so I don't know if you're going to hear that thumping noise. I don't know if you're going to hear some meowing. Sorry about that. Not a whole lot I can do about it. There's no other place for these cats to go right now. So, all that said, we're going to get started. The first step is to make sure that you know whether or not your thermal expansion tank is before or after your hot water shutoff valve. If you are not certain, and I'm going to show you how to look, but if you're still not certain, go ahead and shut water off to your entire home. The last thing you want to do is turn water off to the water heater, have the expansion tank be preceding that shutoff valve, remove the expansion tank, and start having water flooding out everywhere because it's still fully pressurized. Basically, what we're looking for, in this case, sorry, I'm trying to look at the video screen so I know that you can see me. This is my piping coming into the water heater. It's going down and into the T that has my expansion tank. What you can't see just off camera, maybe I can adjust this a little bit so you can take a look. You look up, you'll see my shutoff valve. So in my case, my shutoff valve is installed before my thermal expansion tank. In my area, that's how they typically are done. I don't know where you're watching this from. I don't know whether you're in my area or another region, so be careful that you're checking on that. Even in my own area, I've seen a few times where the expansion tank was installed prior to the shutoff for the water heater. So before we shut off the water to the house, I have a circulating pump in my home. I'm going to go ahead and flip that pump to the off position. If you have a circulating pump, you can flip it to the off position. If you're unsure how to do that, you can unplug it. Basically, you just don't want that pump running dry. You could end up burning it out. If you don't have a circulating pump in your home, then wonderful, you can skip that step altogether. Now that my pump is turned off, I'm going to go ahead and shut off the hot water to my home. At this point, this is still pressurized. If I were to go and try to take this off right now, it's not going to keep flooding and flooding and flooding, but it is going to spew out initially. It's going to be a big mess. I don't want that. I don't really have anything here that I'm too worried about damaging, but I'm going to get soaking wet. I don't want that. You probably don't want that. So what we're going to do is drain the water down. Now this is one of those instances where we do have a little bit of risk involved in the way that I'm going to do it, and I'll explain another way you can in a moment. What I like to do, you can see this valve, and you probably can't. Let's see if I can free handle this camera for a moment and show you this valve right here. This is what we call your temperature and pressure relief valve. This valve is designed to open up if you have extremely high pressure and or temperature. Essentially, in most residential homes, it will open up if you have 150 pounds of pressure going through the system, or if your heater malfunctions and delivers up to 210 degree Fahrenheit water. At 212 degree, water boils. In either of those situations, this tank can essentially become a bomb. So this safety valve recognizes, whoa, things are getting dangerous, we're going to open up and alleviate water, alleviate pressure, alleviate heat from the system. keeps you safe. I like to open things up from that relief valve in some situations. I like to do that for two reasons. Number one, it's the closest exit port for water to go following my expansion tank. In this setup, your expansion tank, if you're in a different region, you may find it's located elsewhere in the home. I've seen some where they're actually installed near the incoming shutoff valve and not near the water heater. So keep that in mind. In my case, they're almost always by the water heater. So where I can, I like to open up the relief valve. It really gets as much of that water out as possible. The second reason, and this is actually one of those situations where things get a little bit risky, is the relief valve itself. There's a very, very thin gasket on the top end, and that gasket can sometimes rip. The reason it's so thin is because in an emergency situation, it needs to operate. It doesn't need to be working against a thick gasket that doesn't want to turn due to age. So it is thin, and over time, it can eventually get brittle, and when I go and open the relief valve, there's a potential as it ages that it could actually tear. When that happens, when I go to repressurize the system, I'm going to notice a small little drip coming from that handle. Nothing massive, nothing substantial, but a small drip nonetheless that we'll then need to address. Now, in my case, I'm fortunate. I'm a plumber. I've got a van here on site, loaded down with equipment, with a new relief valve. If I need to replace this thing, I'm going to be able to do so. But if that's not a risk you want to take, you can always open up a hot water faucet somewhere in the home. Closer to the water heater, the better. In my case, my heater is in the basement, so I would want to open up the hot water valve in the basement, which I don't have, but you may. But the reason I like to actually open this, despite knowing the risk, is because I want to essentially be able to test it out. I want to make sure we're still in good shape, it's still operating and still working. So I find this to be a good opportunity to do so. I'm going to go ahead and slowly open this up, and water is going to start going into my bucket I've got down below. Alright, it's reached a point where it's pressurized. So at this stage, I feel safe to go ahead and remove the thermal expansion tank. So what I'm going to do, take two pliers, what I would call a medium pair and a larger pair. On my larger pair, I'm going to hold back, in this case on my stainless steel T. You may have a copper female adapter, that's a little bit more common. And I'm going to take my medium pair and grip right onto the expansion tank. Now essentially what I'm doing, you've heard lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. I like to discuss things as clockwise, counterclockwise, because it can get a little bit more confusing. If we were to be looking at the expansion tank, looking top down, the expansion tank, we want to rotate counterclockwise. So I'm going to go ahead and do so. Take just a little bit of effort there. And this thing starts to spin free. Once it spins freely, you can take it by hand, continue to rotate. Be mindful that you may still get some water out of it. Lift it up, flip it upside down, or what many consider to actually be right side up, so that the water would not pour out, and set it down. Next up, I'm going to make sure my threads are clean inside, get out any excess Teflon tape. You may see Teflon, pipe dope. Just make sure there's nothing that's going to block the new expansion tank and seal from making a good seal. Now we're going to grab our expansion tank, and I'm going to teach you a very important step that many people skip. I've even worked with another plumbing company in the past, and many of the plumbers who worked there, licensed plumbers, great guys who really know what they're doing for the most part, completely have skipped this step, but it's incredibly important. And that is to match the pressure in this expansion tank with your system pressure. Now this is another instance where hopefully you're watching the video before you got started, because I didn't mention doing a pressure test on your system beforehand. I've assumed that if you are already replacing your expansion tank, you've got a reason to be doing so. Maybe it's got a pinhole leak and that's why, but maybe you've done a pressure test on your home and you realize you have high water pressure. I'm not going to go over exactly how to do that in this video. I've already got a video showing that. If I can figure out how to do so, I'm going to put the card up on the screen right here, I think. Maybe it's here. I don't know. Still learning YouTube. And you can watch that video. It'll show you exactly how to do a full water pressure test. I've already done a test on my home. I know that I'm at about 65 pounds of pressure here in this house. So I'm going to charge this expansion tank to 65 pounds of pressure. You can go, plus or minus 5 pounds, not that big a deal, but try to match as close as you're able. The way we're going to do that, we're going to open up this lid. Again, rotate counterclockwise. And you are going to find a Schrader valve. Now you can use, if you've got a bicycle pump in the home, that's fine. If you've got a little pump that you use to inflate your tires, that's fine. I'm going to use my Milwaukee M12 inflator. I'm not sponsored by Milwaukee, but I'm going to tell you, if this is something that you think you may be doing routinely, maybe you're a maintenance guy who takes care of expansion tanks on property, or you're a plumber who's learning the trade and you're figuring out your own tools, oh my gosh, this thing's overkill if you just need to do this one time. I'm not saying everyone watch this video go out and buy one of these, but if you're going to do this regularly, this thing is so nice. Basically, all I'm going to do, I'm going to try to hold everything so you can see it on the video, and well, let's see how I can, there we go. We're going to thread this on. You'll hear it come out a little bit. I'm then going to take my pump, turn it on. I'm going to hold down the plus button until I get to 65 pounds of pressure. There we go. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to hit this little button right here. It's going to go ahead and charge it, and it's going to automatically stop when we get to 65. So here we go. $65 came to a stop. So I'm going to go ahead and unthread my little hose here. Set the pump to the side. Get the lid, put it back on. Now the reason this is important, if you're not familiar with expansion tanks, essentially what they are doing, they are preventing the pressure in your home from building up too high when the water heater is heating up. So when the water heater heats up, the molecules in the water, they expand, that creates more pressure in the system. This expansion tank, essentially in layman's terms, has a giant balloon on the inside, swells up and receives that pressure. I actually have a video, again I'll try to link it up wherever it's going to pop up at on the screen, where you could see an expansion tank that's actually got a cutaway, and you can sort of see how that works. So, next up, we're going to use some Teflon tape and some pipe dope on the male threads here. I am going to use Mega Tape by Hercules. Again, I'm not sponsored, but I really like this tape. It's very nice, thick, stout tape. You can use the little cheaper white Teflon tape if you want to, but that tape is very flimsy. I used it for years when I was an apprentice plumber with another company. I never had a problem with it, but you've got to really wrap that thing a number of times to get it to seal right, and it tends to rip apart. Very ugly. It makes kind of a mess. I like this tape both because it's stouter. You don't have to wrap it quite as many times. You get more use out of it as a result. And also because I like the color of it. In a scenario like this one, the color might not matter so much, but if I'm replacing a shower head and going with a chrome or a brushed nickel shower head, it's nice to, even though I'm going to get as much excess as I can out of there, it's nice to know that if you do happen to see just a little bit of it, it's going to be a color that's complementary to it instead of something like white. Or Blue Monster's got a really great quality one, but it's blue. I kind of don't like that for that reason either. So because I've got this thicker Hercules tape, I'm wrapping it around. I'm going clockwise. Go about 3 to 4 full turns with it. If you got the white tape, you might want to do closer to 7 to 8 turns. Got that completely wrapped up. Since I'm going metal to metal, I'm not concerned about whether or not I've got tape on the top thread. In this case, it looks like my top thread is bare. That's 100% fine. Some people tell you want the first thread to be bare regardless. That's more important if you're got a plastic male adapter. This is metal, so really not a big deal. Next, I'm going to take my pipe dope, which does happen to be a Blue Monster pipe dope, and just going to put a little bit of pipe dope around here as well. I'm going counterclockwise with it just so I don't mess up the Teflon. You can go counterclockwise if you're careful. It doesn't really matter for the pipe dope perspective, but if you start pulling that Teflon off, then you got to redo that. So now, take our new expansion tank. Going to start threading it into position. It's not exactly hand tight, but I'm going to go ahead and get a pair of pliers, and I'm just going to start with this one for now so you get kind of a feel of how tight we're really going. I'm not having to hold back at this stage. Okay, now we're going to get to the point where I can hold back. And if I'm holding back, we're just going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, starting to get a little bit firm. You really just want it to be snug. It doesn't have to be crazy, crazy tight. I'm just kind of snugging it down, getting to a point where I'm pretty comfortable with it. And now, what we're going to do, I'm going to go ahead and close off my relief valve and turn my water back on. And we are leak free. Now you're probably going to have some air spit out at you when you go to initially open up your faucets. No big deal, don't be alarmed by that, but you've got your new expansion tank in place and you're good to go. So hopefully this has helped you guys out. I'm going to put links to everything you're going to need in the description. Now these links are Amazon affiliate links. So just to be completely upfront, what that means is if you place an order through any of these links, I do get a small commission at absolutely no additional charge to you. I appreciate any purchases you make through that. It really does help me out. If you don't want to make a purchase through there, hey, it doesn't hurt my feelings. Thank you for watching the video all the same. One thing that is really important though that I want to point out, and this is not specifically so you'll buy through my affiliate link, but it's just important. Not all expansion tanks can be mounted in this orientation. Some expansion tanks the manufacturer requires them to be mounted in a specific orientation. This is what most people call upside down. Some want it right side up where it's flipped the other way. I actually think they work better like this, so I like expansion tanks that let you mount like this. In some cases, you may even need horizontal. That's going to depend on the manufacturer. The expansion tank that I'm putting in my link, it allows and is approved for any orientation. So no matter what orientation you do, if you go with the one that's in my description, you're going to be fine. There are other expansion tanks as well that are okay for any orientation. Basically, if you don't get the one that I have linked, just make sure you check on that. Make sure you read the specifications in there, see whether or not it says approved for vertical use only, for standard use only, for horizontal orientation only. Just make sure that it's approved for the orientation you're going to use. Otherwise, it may work, but its lifespan is going to be a lot shorter, and if there's ever a problem with it, manufacturer is going to be within their rights to deny warranting it out. So, again, thank you so much for watching. I really hope this has helped. I appreciate you guys, and this one's actually going out to my cousin Joey. He needs this work done in his house, and he's a little bit too far from me, so I'm trying to help him out with this. So, thanks Joey for asking about it. Got this video up. Hope you enjoy, and hope everyone else enjoys. Peace out. Hey friend. Thanks for watching today's video. I'm glad you're here. I just want to let you know real quick, Jesus loves you. No matter where you are in life, no matter what you may have done, you can never mess up so far as to be able to outrun His love. I know this from my own personal life, my own personal experience, and I just want to be able to spread that and share that to you as well. So, thanks for watching. Gonna say a quick prayer for us today. Dear Lord, I thank you so much for the other person who's on the other side of this screen, who's taken time to watch and perhaps learn something they didn't know. As they go about the process of replacing their expansion tank, Father, help them to be able to do so with absolutely no problems. Let it be just such a smooth, simple job, maybe something that they're even overjoyed that they've been able to accomplish because they didn't previously know they'd be able to. Just let it go well, let there be no problems, and thank you so much for instilling in them the confidence and the willingness to try this out. Thank you so much for loving us. Thank you so much for loving me. Thank you so much for loving them. And Lord, just continue to shower your love upon us. In your heavenly name I pray. Amen. Alright, that's it guys. If you want to help out the channel, then there are a few ways you can do so. Leaving a like, subscribing, that's all really helpful. It truly is. I know every YouTuber says that, and I kind of cringe at being that guy, but it truly does help out. If you're not aware, I am a one-person plumbing company in my local area. So by making these videos, well, I love my community and I make them because I want to help out my local community and the community here online. I'm taking away job opportunities for myself as well. So if you'd like to support me, there's a few ways you can do so in the description, whether it be just a reminder to like and subscribe. If you want to follow some of those Amazon affiliate links and get those products that you need and help me out a little bit with that as well. You know, whatever you may want to do, I appreciate it. I thank you. If you're just here to watch the video, man, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate you guys. You have a great day. Goodbye.